I'd like to give it a quick shout out to my patrons. Thank you very much. And if you haven't joined my Patreon, come on over. We speak about things like how you make a bond claim properly, about staying private when it comes to credit on a business or personal level. Speak about privacy, how to make different types of damages. Because part of the damage that you state as relief is part of your claim. The relief and the granted and the damage itself. We speak about how to establish probable cause when you bring criminal charges and how simple it is. We speak about the concept of copyleft versus copyright, how to get it done. We speak about the GSA bonds, how to get it done, how to put your car in the proper trust and not to pay taxes on it, and a lot more to come about trademarks, different type of marks. So there's a lot more to come. Thank you once again to my patron, and best of luck to everyone. Hey, and welcome back. Regarding the United States Constitution and the importance of the easily overlooked words that are used. The adoption of the Constitution. Adopting the Constitution. Quite often you will see official publications, res judicata's, state common laws, and federal statute. When they make reference to the inception of the Constitution, they will use a qualifying term called adopted, adopting. In other words, the Constitution was adopted. To adopt something means it already existed one way or another, and it was then brought under the auspice of someone or mimicked. Like you would adopt a child. The child is not yours. It belongs to someone else predominantly, and it was taken under your capacity, under specific terms and conditions. A lot of people go on about the Constitution is their instrument, it is theirs, so I'm not going to use it because I am private. When you say theirs, who exactly is being referred to? More importantly, as it regards to quote them or theirs, what about the Constitution limits your ability to put it to use? And regarding you not being a party to the Constitution, that is correct. You, the private man, are not a party to the Constitution. Because the Constitution was meant to limit those who are operating or acting in a commercial capacity. Then caveats are left towards the end of it, called the Bill of Rights. It makes it very clear that these are the commandments, aka the 10 Amendments, which are known as the Bill of Rights. Anything else outside of 10 Amendments are not the Bill of Rights. Like the 10 Commandments, the Bill of Rights use verbiages like, you shall not do this, you shall not do that, you shall do this, you shall not do that. It is a commandment. Congress shall make no law respecting. No soldier shall, in time of peace, quote unquote, the right of the people to secure their persons, papers, in effect shall not be violated. He keeps using this specific commanded term, shall. It's a commandment. And the first 10 amendments are the Bill of Rights. So yeah, you're right. It doesn't apply to you. It applies to the actors, the corporate actors, and limits them. If you make a decision to not put this to use, then you have willfully abandoned one of the main tools that will be used to hold them liable. If an acting judge sits in front of you and tells you you're not a party to the Constitution, you tell them, that's correct, I'm not a party to the Constitution, but you are. And I am reminding you of your bound duties as affirmed by that which you swore an oath to, and the substantive rights that's commanded for you not to abrogate based on the Bills of Rights. So I agree with you. I'm not a party to it, but you are, and you're bound by it. These are the subtleties that a lot of people miss. You need to understand and comprehend and be savvy to the fact that you are the one with the power to actually pick and choose. But the other party that you hate so much, they're the ones doing that to you. They pick and choose the laws or statute or acts, the codes that they want to use against you as they wish. Because the majority of the people have abandoned that which is rightfully theirs. They take one terminology or one phrase and just use it as a blanket term over everything else without knowing the subtleties. But nonetheless, the adoption of the Constitution. Before we continue, everything on here, this website that you're looking at is on the Smithsonian website, and it's considered an official publication that's self-authenticating. According to Rule 903(5), official publication, a book, pamphlet, or other publication purporting to be issued by a public authority. The Smithsonian Institution is considered a public authority and is also one of the agencies of the United States. So this is their words. In their words, they are admitting certain things. And one of the things that's admissible, that's a hearsay exception, is when you use someone's words against them. Learn the art. So what does it mean when they say the Constitution is adopted? This is Alexander Hamilton, Federalist #1, which is a publication. It seems to have been reserved to the people of this country, there were other things said in between that, to decide the important question. Meaning, you have the power. You are the one who can truly veto or accept anything going on. So because you heard some acting judge say you're not a party to the Constitution at some point in time, you completely ran away from it. Yet, here are some of the supposed founding men and women that's saying you have the power to decide the things that are important. Whether societies of men are really capable or not of establishing good government from reflection and choice. The choice and reflections that you make determines whether your government will be tyrannical or not. And this thing called the Constitution is meant to prevent them from doing that. It might not be too wise to run away from the Constitution. The quote then goes on to say, or whether they are forever destined to depend for their political constitutions on accident and force. Are these not the two main things that most people are suffering from? Force being used against you to do things that you rather not have happen or occur to you and your loved ones, whether it's directly or indirectly. Whether it's them using the power of the First Amendment, which is news and media, against you one way or the other, or whether it's them using police power, which is abrogated by the Constitution at a federal and state level, to take things away from you, or whether it's them using the principles of the obligation of contract to take things away from you, or accidents. This accident is referring to the willful intention that you have to prove when you bring in a claim against them, in order for you to prevail to state a claim upon which relief can be granted, like willful negligence, willful omission. They can claim, oh, it was an accident, oh, we didn't know any better. But if you're running away from the Constitution, you would not be able to tackle that appropriately. This is supposedly Gregorian calendar 1787, Alexander Hamilton talking about this. Meaning these things people are suffering from is not new. It's just a repetition of what these people ran away from one part of the world here, and it was usurped. Why? Because most people are running away from the substance that's supposed to assist them. If you don't even comprehend the most basic things like the Constitution, how would you be able to backtrace the other bodies of documents that holds that up so it works. If you don't understand the newest born, you won't be able to comprehend the older versions and you will not be able to put it to use. So begin by paying attention to the Constitution so that you can effectively backtrace things to where it's supposed to be and put things in their place. It seems to have been reserved to the people of this country to decide the important question whether societies of men are really capable or not of establishing good government from reflection and choice, or whether they are forever destined to depend for their political constitutions on accident and force. Alexander Hamilton, The Federalist, number 1, 1787. This is about the adoption of the Constitution and the importance of this key word, adoption, and why they always use this term, adoption. They're telling you exactly what it is, meaning there's a deeper origin to this Constitution. Adopting a new frame of government also requires Americans to make a leap of faith. After a long war and many disputes, supporters of the U.S. Constitution declared the need for stable central government to secure the blessings of liberty to Americans. But could the growing nation pull together? The states had not always cooperated with one another. They knew there were sovereign body politics. We went over that in the video regarding how the 14th Amendment was not properly ratified according to the requirements of the Constitution itself. And we went over each state legislature and the reference of how they disagreed with it within their own legislature and the resolutions that they published that can be used as admissible evidence. Congress had been too weak to counter European and Native American powers or to settle conflicts within or between states, meaning there was an utter state of chaos with different interested parties who had a stake, rightful stake, at certain things. Delegates to the Constitutional Convention agreed to shift power to the central government, meaning they're going to homogenize everything. At the same time, they provided the federal government officials be elected either directly or indirectly so as to represent the people as a whole, meaning there was a supposed intent of a republican form of government where you call the shots by binding one or few group of people to act on your behalf, and you give them the ability to delegate your power to others so that your intent can be satisfied. For instance, taxation. We spoke about that in another video of how it's basically a waste and how it only lasts them 7 days. If they were to take 7 billion from people, it would only last them 7 days for operational cost. So for instance, that type of tax, now that it's being used the wrong way, the true intent behind taxes, you would volunteer something of value or consideration into a pot where everyone else is putting it into, and then that value that each and every one of you have put into that pot will come back to you one way or the other, and that gives you the right to say, okay, this must be done with the money or not. And then you permit someone to control that money, and if they don't do right, you hire or fire them or hold them liable. But they switched up the game on everyone effectively. Proposal for a constitution. In September 1787, Americans had their first chance to see the new Constitution. New Constitution. Then there was a previous one. And this new one does not annul the old one unless it's stipulated otherwise. The interesting part is if the new Constitution, which is the 1787 one that was finally ratified in 1791, if this new Constitution annulled the previous ones, then the founding power for them to even do a constitutional convention and come together to create a new constitution becomes annulled. they themselves automatically killed their own power to make a new constitution if they annul the old one. That is also the subtle gray area that no one is speaking about. That is also the subtle gray area that they don't tell you. So does that mean the older constitutions can still be enforceable in your contract, in public or private court? Absolutely. In September 1787, Americans had their first chance to see the new Constitution proposed by a convention in Philadelphia. Over their summer, the convention had not met in private, allowing no press coverage. The convention had met in private, allowing no press coverage of their debates or decisions. This is an important part that, till today, majority of us do not know what was discussed, what deals were cut under the table. The Providence Gazette and Country Journal was amongst the newspapers that first published the plan, meaning the intent, like you do a declaration of trust and you have the intent. That's what they're referring to when they say plan. What followed was a broad debate that Alexander Hamilton, the man whose phrase we just read earlier, called a great national discussion. Should a state ratify, reject, or amend the document that became the U.S. Constitution? So after that private meeting over the summer, what was now publicized through the Providence Gazette newspaper and the Country Journal newspaper was that should the state ratify, reject, or amend the documents that became the U.S. Constitution that was discussed in a private during the summer. But you have to keep in mind, it was adopted. So when they say it was adopted, what does that really mean? According to 1828 Merriam-Webster's, close to around that same time period, about a generation after, because it's important, the year's definition that's being used is important to the circumstance of the subject matter you're dealing with. Nonetheless, to adopt, to take by choice into a relationship involves more than one party. Especially to take voluntarily of others as one's own, to take up the practice or use, to accept formally and put into effect. There is something that previously existed, owned by someone else, but now a similitude of ownership is adopted by someone else, is held by someone else. They adopt it. And on a side note, regarding the location where this occurred, Philadelphia, this is the reason why every time you get a certified copy of the United States Constitution, you would often see them make this reference within the certification page. Library of Congress. When you get a certified copy of the United States Constitution, this is the formal title of it. The Constitution of PA and the Constitution of the U.S. PA we will presume refers to Pennsylvania, which is where the convention took place. So regarding the adoption, from where this thing called the Constitution, or the principles, constitutional principles of a nation or a government, from where was it adopted? Congressional records tell you also. It is in Congressional Record Proceedings and Debate of the 103rd Congress, First Session, Volume 139, March 17, 1993, number 33. The answer is in here. Laws and concurrent resolution enacted during the second session of the 100th session Congress of the United States of America, 1988, the Proclamation Volume 102, in 5 parts. Part 1. Public Law 100-243 through 100-406. United States Government Printing Office. Self-authenticating evidence. This is what they mean when they say the Constitution was adopted. They would not give you the clear, succinct verbiage of where and how. That's why they held it privately. Because if this was put into the press, at that point in time, many people who truly have the power would not have agreed to it. There would have been, remember, there's already a chaos going on. There would have been a greater chaos. But know this, representatives from each side, the respective states, the so-called Native Americans, and the representatives of Great Britain they were all in this private meeting that took place over the summer at Philadelphia. Iroquois Confederacy and Indian nations, recognizing contributions to the United States. Recall now, we're speaking of the adoption of the Constitution, meaning it has a previous origin. We're going to go over the confederations, the association, and all the other treaties. But let's deal with this first. Let's get this out of the way so that those other instruments that we're going to be going over will make more sense. Whereas the original framers of the Constitution, including most notably George Washington and Benjamin Franklin, are known to have greatly admired the concept of 6 nations of the Iroquois Confederacy. Whereas the Confederation of the original 13 colonies, aka the Articles of Confederation, whose true name is the Article of Perpetual Union from the year 1777. Whereas the Confederation of the original 13 colonies into one republic was influenced by the political system developed by the Iroquois Confederacy, so the 1777 treaty, called the Articles of Confederation, was also influenced by a pre-existing form of government, the Iroquois Confederacy. The Confederation of the original 13 colonies into one republic was influenced by the political system developed by the Iroquois Confederacy, as were many of the democratic principles, which were incorporated into the Constitution itself. Now they're telling you that we have effectively usurped it, because the intent of the government, according to Article 4, Section 4 of the United States government itself, was supposed to be Republican in nature. You see, on one hand, they speak of the Republic, which is the 13 colonies into one republic right here. They tell you, which is the Confederation. So the true Republic was formed under the Articles of Confederation, which was also influenced by the Iroquois Confederacy. But now they're telling you that we've effectively, through the United States Constitution, brought in democratic principles. They're telling you right here, black and white. One could just read this simple clause and think of it as, oh, it's talking about other things. That's cool. It sounds cool. Oh, it spoke about Native Americans. Ooh, that makes me feel good. Indians. All right. Okay. Even though there's a lot more flaw to that a lot of people already know. And if one is not already aware of it, we could talk about that in the future also. But besides all that fanatical stuff about what you think you are, it's letting you know that you have been usurped. These are 2 separate forms of government that were spoken of in the same exact clause. One preceded the other, and they're letting you know that the one that was preceded, which is the Republican form of government, the Article of Confederation, is now usurped with the other form of government, which is democratic principles. We're not here to judge and say one is right or wrong. We're just making it very clear that there are 2 distinct forms of governments, and one intent was usurped by the other. You come to your own reasonable deductive conclusion based on deductive reasoning. And while you're using that deductive reasoning, put into consideration Article 4, the fourth section, Republican government. When it uses this term Republican, it's not talking about the current format of political hegemony that most people perceive through the media one way or the other, or what most people think it is how government is supposed to be ran. This phrase, Republican, has nothing to do with the quote Republican Party most people think, where those red ties with all the symbolisms and these are just a bunch of wealthy people who don't like poor people, even though the so-called wealthy people who don't like poor people are the ones giving you a way out with this whole trash that's being done out here these days. But nonetheless, Article 4, Section 4 tells you the United States shall guarantee to every state in this union, meaning there was already a union prior to the Constitution, which is this Article of Confederation being made reference to regarding the original 13 colonies into one republic. The United States shall guarantee to every state in this union, the Article of Confederation, a republican form of government. Meaning they're telling you that the Confederation, the Articles of Confederation of 1717, is the one that is the true republican form of government. So you hear people talk about the United States for America and United States of America, and people search through the abyss of papers, PDFs. People search through hell and cold for that one document that has that official verbiage, United States of America, United States for America. But let me tell you the truth. You will never ever find any formal official self-authenticating original document that has that verbiage, United States for America. That is another patriotic speculation that was brought up. And whoever brought that up is giving you that delineation. I'm sure the intent initially was right, but people took it and misinterpreted it and started looking for some official verbiage that says United States for America. When you hear about United States for America, it's telling you about the Articles of Confederation, which is reaffirmed in Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution, speaking of the fact that every state in the Union is guaranteed a republican form of government. When you hear United States of America, that is the typical Constitution that was finalized in 1791, beginning with the Constitutional Convention in 1787. The four United States Constitution are the confederations and the preceding treaties. The of United States Constitution is the modern one, which is the 1791. Therein lies the misconception. And if you're merely relying on the for of verbiage and you want to enforce that in court, yet you're accepting the fact that you're not a party to the Constitution, and yet you're saying you're a private man, my man, woman, you are fooling yourself. You are dabbling in a world that is not going to benefit you, because the foundation you're standing on does not exist. And those on the other end, and when I say those, I'm referring to the people, not the peons, talking about the high level masons who know about this, who have direct bloodline to benefiting from all this, whether they look like you or not. Whatever it is you think they are, whatever their resume online says they are, what university they went to, what law school they went to, they know these basic things. And as you stand up there or sit up there bringing up these delineations of United States for America compared to United States of America, then you throw Black's Law Dictionary definitions, and then you try to say you're a private man, you don't have jurisdictions, yet You've been sending all those papers in. Do you not know those papers are considered pleadings that grant subject matter jurisdiction by themselves? And if you want, don't show up. They will issue a warrant. And one way or the other, you're mixing and matching jurisdictions and capacities. And one day, all that trash you're talking, you would have to stand on it. And if you don't know these simple things, these 101s, you will suffer. But the thing is, you should not suffer. You don't deserve to, because the true power is in your hands. Yet you yourself are throwing it away. Hence you're suffering. The spirit of the law wants you to pay proper attention to it. If you're going to look into things with a deeper mind, remove speculations and look at true evidence. Read, do some self-reflection, and it will truly reveal itself. Too often you see people trying to banter and get into some deep conversations about how one thing works or not. And at first it sounds right, and it's actually good that people are thinking that way. I want to think outside the box. But a point comes where you realize, wait a minute, you're just going into another realm that's not going to functionally change your understanding of how this thing actually works. It's not going to functionally change your current position in life, and will not benefit those who will come after you. And then people go on rambling in circles. They get lost in speculations, and they start creating formats and processes out of speculations without any substance behind it. You don't do that. You deserve and are better than that. Take your true power back by understanding the format, the true format, an algorithm of how these things are set up. And the most interesting part is they tell you right in your face. But if you don't know how to connect the dots, it becomes speculative, confusing. And at some point, people preconsciously and subconsciously give up by creating something else that doesn't exist, just so they can prove something to themselves or to someone else. When in truth, everything you need is laid out in front of you, flat. The United States shall guarantee to every state in this union. The union is the Articles of Confederation that speaks about perpetual union. It tells you a republican form of government, meaning they are reaffirming what already exists. And what is that thing that already exists? What is this specific terminology? This one word, union. It tells you it's a standalone term in itself. It's an entity. This union is a political body of its own. It is this right here, the Articles of Confederation and Perpetual Union. This document is what's being referred to here in Article 4, Section 4, regarding a republican form of government. This article right here is also the same document that's made reference to here in this second clause of this congressional record that says, whereas the Confederation. What Confederation? This, the Articles of Confederation and Perpetual Union. Now you see two documents, the United States Constitution and the document within the Senate proceeding that lets you know where they adopted this from is making reference to this. Both of them are making reference to this one document. So now this document that tells you about where the United States Constitution comes from have one thing in common, and it is this right here, the Articles of Confederation and Perpetual Union between the states. States of what? Here it tells you, whereas the Confederation of the article of the original 13 colonies into one republic, they're telling you that these 13 colonies that was established by this organization document called the Articles of Confederation right here has 13 parties to it that are republican in nature, which is the same thing that was referred to here. The United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a republican form of government. And who are these 13 original parties? It tells you in its title itself. The Articles of Confederation and Perpetual Union between the states of New Hampshire, Massachusetts Bay, Rhode Island, and Province of Plantations. This is one entity. Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. These are the 13 states that are made reference to herein. whereas the Confederation of the original 13 colonies, these right here that we just went over, into one republic was influenced by the political system developed by Iroquois Confederation. So this is the founding document, the Articles of Confederation, where this was built upon. And this founding document was built upon the Iroquois Confederacy. Then it goes on to tell you how they usurped it by their own words, as were many of the democratic principles which were incorporated into the Constitution itself. The Constitution they're speaking of is this right here. This is the Constitution of the United States. And this is the Constitution for the United States. The 1777 Articles of Confederation and Perpetual Union. See this qualifying term, Perpetual Union? Meaning any other entities or political body could join so long as these 13 entities agree. Meaning this is perpetual. This is a contract that's perpetual. Like you would create certain trusts and some of them would expire after a certain year, or you would create an operating agreement, which is this right here, and it would expire upon a certain period, or you would make it perpetual. Or certain oath of office and bonds expire within a certain period, or sometimes they're perpetual. These same basic principles of contract are incorporated herein. It is right in front of you. Remember we spoke earlier about the fact that they cannot omit or kill the old Constitution just because they're creating a new one. Because if they did, they would kill the power that allows them to create the new one by their own actions. The old Constitution compared to the new one is this right here, the 1791 United States Constitution. The old one is the Articles of Confederation and the other documents that's attached to this as a launch, and the other treaties. This is where the right to travel is clearly stipulated. They use the verbiage ingress and redress. But that's probably a topic for another day. Take care and good luck.